Today's stories are from IDOWorkHereLady. A lady called the police because I was wearing a hoodie. I work at a somewhat large gas station. While we're given a single jacket with the store logo on it, there are 8 cashiers, and even if the illness wasn't a thing, it's just not sanitary. Our normal uniform is a pair of black pants and a bright polo with the store logo. So, it was pretty cold yesterday and I was wearing my hoodie because the store is built very cheap and isn't insulated. The ceilings are just bare metal. I was sitting in the chair for a couple minutes by the eating area because it was pretty slow when I saw a car pull in. So, I went back behind the counter. Here comes the delusional lady. She walked up to my counter and asked, excuse me, where is the cashier? Me. You're looking at him. What can I do for you? Delusional lady. I come here every morning and I've never seen you. You don't even have the uniform. Now, the reason that's relevant is because I always work late evening, so I've never seen this lady in my life. I probably haven't been awake before 2 p.m. in a year. Me. Oh, sorry about that. It's just cold in here and the heat doesn't really work. So I took off my hoodie just to prove to this lady that I did in fact work there. She then pulled out her phone as 2 other customers walked in and a line formed behind her. Delusional lady. This guy doesn't work here. I think he's stealing. I'm calling the police. She walked off to the sitting area and dialed for the police. Meanwhile, I guess the other 2 people realized she was an idiot and let me ring them up. She watched the entire time telling the police I was pocketing money. When they arrived, we ended up having to call my manager to the store to explain that I did, in fact, work there. They let her off with a warning and banned her from the store. The police wouldn't let the store stay open for the entire hour it took the manager to get there. I was never detained as it was obvious I worked there, but they insisted on talking to the manager. And also, did I mention that I am the assistant manager? This is the definition of I do work here, lady. I get that she might be confused that the OP maybe didn't work there because the OP didn't have the uniform on and everything, but why would she tell the police that he's stealing or that he's pocketing money? That just seems very strange. I mean, that's something that's really easy to disprove. You just show them the cameras in the store and you could see that there is no pocketing of any money. So why would she go with that? Maybe it was just to get them to come down more urgently. Who knows? It's a shame the whole place had to be shut down for an hour because that business lost an hour of business time because this lady just called the police on them. This one has to do with his face being on the building, but somehow he's not the owner. I love a lot of the I Do Work Here Lady stories, and I feel for all the employees out there, and wow, you've got some doozies. I own an IT services business, now serving corporate clients, but several years ago, I also had a small chain of computer repair stores and took customer walk-ins. I was a pretty active owner and would work the front counter regularly because I like to interact with customers, and when I can, I like to stay close to what the front line is struggling with since they understand the business way better than me in some key regards. I also think pretty highly of myself, so I used to plaster my face on all of my advertising, which resulted in my ending up as sort of a walking billboard for my business around town. So I'm working the counter at one of my shops, and this fellow I'd never seen before walks in and brings his computer to the counter and tells me that his computer is not working and that I need to fix it. He was a second language learner, so you can't always assume someone is trying to be rude if English is not their first language. Sometimes it just sounds that way, so patience is important, and so is not judging someone. I thank him for coming in and explained to him the diagnostic fees we charged and that the diagnostic fee went toward the repair, all the standard stuff, and he immediately flies into a rage. He tells me that he had already paid the fee and the computer still wasn't fixed. Oh no, I said. When did you bring it in? He said he couldn't remember, but that it wasn't long ago. So I looked it up in the computer system, and sure enough, there is his customer record complete with the serial number of his system. It had been a full year since that computer was brought in. When I explained this to him, and that it had been too long by anyone's standards, most new consumer computers only have a 1-year factory warranty, and this was not a new computer, he flies into another tirade about what a ripoff we are and how I need to fix this computer because it never worked right after he got it back. I explained that it had just been too long, and that sets him off screaming and threatening me. Fortunately, there was a counter between us, so I tell him to get out of my store. I used profanity. It was not my finest hour, but profanity is a strong suit of mine. He won't leave, and he says he isn't leaving until I fix his computer for free, and he says he'll call the police if he has to. I pick up the phone and dial the police for him, explaining to the dispatcher that I have someone in my shop who threatened me and refuses to leave. So the police show up, and by this time the guy had calmed down a bit and even seemed thankful vehicle of the police had arrived. After a short interview as to my job role and the situation, the responding officer says, "Hey, sorry the owner wants you to leave. You're gonna have to leave." This sets the guy off even more, and he starts screaming, "He's not the owner! I know the owner! The owner would never treat me this way! He's not the owner!" So the policeman says, "This is the owner. I happen to know he's the owner." The guy continues to argue with the officer, but the officer remains calm. "Okay, how about we talk about this outside?" To my surprise, the guy grabs his computer and goes outside with the officer, still ranting on and on about how I had no authority and how the officer had no right to throw him out, and he wants to speak to the owner. I could still see and hear the two of them outside the retail glass doors as the police officer calmly points to the 9-foot tall retail window on the front of the store with my photo taking about 2/3 of the space and my name and title in about 9-inch bold letters under my giant ugly face. So the man goes silent, packs up his computer in his car, hops in, and drives away. I never saw him again. I was really thankful one of my clerks didn't have to deal with that guy, but when I messaged them all the story, they all wished they had been there. Apparently there actually is an entire subreddit dedicated to I know the owner stories, and this would definitely be one of them. So a year ago, or more than a year ago, he gets his computer back, it's not working right, and then he doesn't say anything for over a year. That seems like a very bad move. And even if the guy wasn't the owner, it didn't really make a difference here because I'm sure the policy that he signed when he was doing this whole computer process probably said this is covered up to a year, and they could see the date, they could look back and see the charges or something and know that this is way outside the realm of being able to get another free repair for it. Running a business like this seems really tough because you're probably going to have to keep repairing the same people's computers over and over again, and they're going to think that you're doing something weird when in reality it's probably whatever they're doing that keeps making the computers fall apart over time or get filled up with spyware or bloatware or whatever the problem actually is. So let me know what you do if you were in this situation. This next I Do Work Here Lady story has to do with a lady who claims to be the owner's daughter. So a little backstory on where I work. It's a very small family business where we sell pools and pool chemicals. Only 2 desks in our office which can fully see into the showroom. 1 desk for the manager and 1 desk for me. Also, when I say small business, I mean it. Normally, it was just me, the assistant manager, and my mom. I had been in this business since I was born, therefore knew a lot for my age. However, we had just recently hired someone new that was a little older than me. I was 21 years old at the time, and my new coworker was 28 years old. The manager, my mom, had to go pick up some office supplies for us and mail off some bills, so it was just me and my coworker Matt. We weren't very busy at the time since it was a weekday and fairly close to closing time, so I was sitting at my desk and he was at the manager's desk since he didn't have his own, on our phones waiting to hear the door open. We hear the door open and my coworker starts to get up, and I tell Matt that I've got this one, so he sits back down. I stand up and see this lady, Karen, and her kid come in and start walking around. I walk out into the showroom and welcome them to the store and ask them if they need help finding anything. Karen says, "We're just looking right now. I will let you know if we have any questions." Karen's kid says, "I want a pool. Where's the toys at?" Me, "Well, the pool toys are right over there in the aisle by the door and on that wall." I motion to the wall where all the displays were. Karen says, "I told you that we didn't need any help right now." I just stepped back and walked into the office, not wanting any confrontation this close to closing. They continued to look around for another few minutes when I heard the kid hollering from the front of the store. I looked up and the kid was climbing on our ladder samples, which clearly have a neon green sign that are 8 by 11 that say "Do not climb on." So I walk up to the front of the store and politely told the kid that he couldn't climb on them. Karen says, "You can't tell my son what to do." Karen's kid says, "I just want to climb on them." He then starts to cry. This kid was about 10 years old. Me, "I'm sorry, but it's against company policy to have anyone climbing on them for safety purposes." Karen, "Well, maybe you should have a sign on them that says you can't." I point at the sign that says you can't. Karen says, "Well, you should have made the sign bigger." I'm not the best at containing my frustration, and when I get frustrated at someone, my sarcasm comes out with absolutely zero filter. The kid had been running around our store screaming like a banshee, and I was getting very annoyed. Me, under my breath, "Well, maybe you should try using your eyes next time." Karen, "What did you say to me?" Me, "I said to look for a sign next time you want to let your son climb all over displays in a store," and I walked away. She continues walking around with the kid still crying until she gets to one corner where we have some Legos for kids to play with while their parents wait to have their water tested or be helped. Mind you, the test lab was closed and the area roped off with all the lights shut off in that corner. Karen's kid screaming, "I want to play with those Legos! Karen, all right, just go ahead. I wasn't even in the mood to say no, as long as it stopped him from crying. Then he starts carrying them out from the designated area and throwing them down the aisles at our toy displays. I had enough of this little kid because I knew I was going to have to clean it up. I've been told that I'm pretty scary when I'm angry too. Me to Karen's kid, you are not allowed to take the Legos from the play area. Please put them back where you got them from. Karen, who do you think you are talking to my son that way? Me, I am simply telling you both that what he's been doing is not allowed in our store and needs to stop. Karen, well, how dare you talk to us this way? I'll have you know that I'm the owner's daughter and I will get you fired for this. Mind you, the owners are my grandparents, and she sure as hell isn't my aunt. She walks up to the counter that looks into the office before I could say anything. Karen to Matt, have you heard how your employee talks to me? He is the most rude employee I've seen in here, and I'm the owner's daughter, and I demand that you fire him. Matt, well, I can't do that. Karen, why not? He's a rude jerk. Matt, I can't fire him because he's my boss. Karen, what? No, he isn't. You're lying to me. She's droning on and on. Now, we have an employee picture on the wall celebrating our business's 50th anniversary with everyone labeled in the picture, including the owners and all their kids. Karen finally shuts up and looks at me while I'm grabbing the picture frame off the wall. I slide it in front of her and point to my label. My name, assistant manager, with grandson underneath my name and title. Her face turns every shade of red under the sun. Me, so you mean to tell me that you're a long lost aunt of mine, because if not, you can get out of this store. She practically dragged her kid out of the store while trying to run out the doors. She kept pushing on our doors trying to get out, but they're pull doors. Me shouting at her, maybe try to pull the doors, you jerk. Somebody suggested shouting at her when she was pulling on the push doors or vice versa, still not using your eyes. Or when she said, well, you should have made the sign bigger, say, sorry, we don't sell glasses here. The ultimate moment is when Matt said I can't fire him because he's my boss. But either way, you shouldn't have to take out the family photo to prove that you can't be fired like that upon meeting somebody for the first time in the store when you're asking them to do perfectly reasonable things. But let me know what you guys would do in the situation. How would you have handled it?